On this week's NFV SDN Reality Check, we speak with the European Telecommunications Standards Institute to get an update on the organization's work in developing standards for NFV. Well, thanks for joining us in this week's NFV SDN Reality Check. I am your host, Dan Meyer, Editor-in-Chief here at RCR Wireless News. Well, ETSI initiated standards work for NFV back in 2012, starting with collaboration with 7 telecom network operators. The organization completed work on phase 1 of its project in early 2015 and is now working through phase 3 of its project with a focus on security. The organization now counts more than 270 individual companies and 38 service providers as members on its work. ETSI earlier this year said it had begun work on using open source software for management and orchestration of NFV, with a focus on delivering an open source MANO stack using accepted open source tools and networking procedures. This followed up on an industry workshop held in Louisville, Colorado, designed to align cloud and network-centric initiatives behind the move towards the deployment of NFV through automation. ETSI claimed the meeting was the first attended by key standards organizations and open source communities to work on alignment of NFV activities. Participants included the 3GPP, ATIS, the Broadband Forum, ITU, the Open Cloud Connect, Open Networking Forum, OpenDaylight, OPNFV, and the TM Forum, among others. On today's show, we have an interview with Diego Lopez, who's the technical director at ETSI and also at Telefonica, to discuss ETSI's latest work targeting the NFV space, as well as challenges the organization feels still need to be tackled. Lopez also put on his Telefonica hat to discuss opportunities and challenges the telecom operator sees in the push towards greater NFV adoption. Let's take a look at that interview now. All right, well, thanks for joining us today. Well, today we're joined by Diego Lopez, who works at ETSI and Telefonica, to get a bit of an update on the NFV progress. So, hey, Diego, thanks so much for joining us this week. We appreciate it.
No, thank you.
Great. Well, maybe we'll start off with, obviously, ETSI has been very busy in terms of NFV work. I know you're doing a lot of it there as well. Maybe get a bit of an update, I guess. Where are we in terms of kind of the progress towards, I guess, standards when it comes to NFV? I mean, obviously, it's been a while since we last talked on this. I know there's been a lot of work happening. So what's your overall view of kind of the progress that's been made by ETSI so far?
Well, basically, we are about to finish what we have called our release 2. Yep. I mean, release 1 was the one that we produced with the original framework documents, and you probably you and many of the people that will watch this will see that we have this famous diagram with the MANO stack and the whole picture of NFV that has become I would say totally widespread.
Yes.
And release 2 was precisely mostly focused on the starting with analyzing and identifying documenting requirements on the one hand, and which is the formal requirements that the communities see for NFV to happen. And on the other hand, continue exploring new relationships of the technology and in terms of the relationships of additional technologies that are connected with NFV on the one hand, and exploring the future evolution of NFV and the so to say, reaching the limits of and trying to expand them. On the hand of the requirements, we have produced a set of consistent already. We have a set of consistent documentation dealing with the underlying infrastructure, mostly with the virtual infrastructure manager, with the virtual infrastructure, with the dealing with acceleration mechanisms for integrating enhanced hardware or software inside the uniform supporting infrastructure that we all advocate for NFV. This is already available, and the IFA, the working group focused on interfaces and architectures. That's where the IFA comes from. Is about to produce the rest of the MANO stack requirements. And very recently, a couple of days ago, there was a meeting. Was finished a meeting, an interim meeting in Finland, precisely in which in a few days they managed to deal with more than 100 different contributions, and they put the other documents in a very good shape. This is on the one hand. On the other hand, we have been focusing on for example, the connection of NFV with SDN, which is something that is very important. We are trying to formalize how you can make SDN and NFV work in a consistent way. It's not only that SDN is going to be the infrastructure supporting NFV, but it's about that you can put SDN elements all over the place in which you can put virtualized functions, and analyzing how this relationship could happen and could benefit the users of both technologies is something that it was part of this second release. And we have advanced as well with all the security aspects that are extremely relevant when it comes not only to supporting the security of the different functions and supporting the security of the infrastructure, but as well addressing particular regulatory aspects when it comes to that are very much related with how you support security in a virtualized environment. And finally, with how you provide an enhanced reliability of the infrastructure and of the functions, and you take advantage of the virtualization aspects to precisely enhance the reliability of the services based on this infrastructure.
So obviously you guys have been very busy then, that's for sure. I mean, a lot happening there over the past couple of months, staying busy for you guys.
I can tell you, last year has been, interesting, definitely.
Yeah. Well, I guess maybe looking at some of those, I mean, like you said, I guess the second release is coming out here pretty quickly. I know you guys did a lot of work on that. Did it seem like that came together at a pretty good pace, and that there was a good collaboration on kind of the kind of insight into that? Was it a pretty smooth process? Has it gotten a little easier as opposed to the first release? How did that come together for you guys?
On the one hand, it has been harder in terms of reaching consensus, because when you're discussing about the general principles, you're discussing about the general picture, things are more or less, everybody was in agreement. Yeah. Now you go to the detail, and when it comes to the detail, things can become, complicated. This is on the one hand, but this is a sign that the different companies, the different people participating on in the ETSI is really interesting, and they are really paying attention to this. And these long discussions seem like, it's the natural growing pains. Mm-hmm. This is something that we have. On the other hand, as I said before, is quite a good sign that we have a smooth process and that we have a culture of collaboration. Is precisely that in the recent meeting of IFA, with the more than 100 contributions were discussed and approved, and they are shaping the. The conclusion is that the discussions are going into much more depth, but the collaboration process, the trust among the different people participating in the discussions is good enough just to support, to support a process that is going smoother. That even we dare to
sure.
Well, at the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is such a big process, and like you said, as it's evolving, it seems like more and more people are getting involved in this, because people want to take advantage of virtualization in their networks, but they also want to have a say a bit in what's happening too. And so trying to get all those points of view into this, I'm sure for you guys has got to be, again, a little bit smoother because you've been doing it for a while now, but still, it's got to be such a huge challenge to get everybody involved and on the same page.
Yeah, no, the process always. Very often you get to points in the discussions that you think, well, this is going nowhere. We are completely doomed. We are not going to. But at the end, the spirit is good, and as fast as there is this spirit of collaboration, the spirit of achieving something and doing something and making bringing a real transformation to the industry, something that is so far is working, and I'm really glad with the process and the results.
Yeah, and I know for myself, and at least with speaking a lot of the telecom operators involved, it does seem like they are at least getting more and more on the same page, a lot more collaboration amongst themselves, which is, typically they're very competitive with each other, but it does seem like when it comes to at least this move, they understand the importance of getting this right make sure that they can all take advantage of the benefits of this. So it does seem like, yeah, like you're saying, the collaboration part of it, people are becoming more understanding of everything as well too, especially on the telecom operators especially.
Yeah, no, I think that there is a general understanding that this is a kind of achievements that we either we make it all together or we won't make it at all. So it's and this general understanding is not only among the operators. I would say that even the different vendors and the different small and one of the most interesting things around NFV in particular, and in general software networks, SDN or whatever, in general, is that there are many new players, new kids on the block playing, and but there is a clear spirit that it has to be a joint effort, because nobody is going to make a real advantage of going on its own, and this is something that is important as well.
Yeah, that's a good point, right? Which among the vendor community, obviously the legacy telecom operators, they're obviously involved in this, but for them it's a big a change in their business models, really. But then again, all the new players, like you said, are coming in, and I know for myself, I see all these new companies coming in, and I talk to a lot of them, and it is very interesting and exciting to kind of see all this new blood really coming in to the telecom market. It's been exciting to see, but I guess for you, because you kind of have to consolidate all that together, a little more work for you, but I guess that's okay.
That's part of the fun.
Exactly. Well, one thing I want to touch a little bit on was also the focus on maybe a growing focus on open source, or in terms of kind of the use of open source for this. How has that progressed, perhaps over the past 6 to 12 months? I know recently you guys have had, or ETSI's had some kind of some open source conferences, kind of bringing in some people to talk about the importance of that. How has that progressed for you, and how do you view the importance and the continued adoption of the open source community into the standards process?
The curious thing is that when everything started, there was a commitment of engaging with the open source community, and in particular with an open source community that was very relevant from the very beginning, that was OpenSec. Yeah. And around that, different initiatives have flourished. We started with this the OpenNFV community that was very much focused on building a stable and tested infrastructure, able to support NFV, and that was mostly committed to an integration work of selecting different pieces, putting them together, testing them, checking them, and building a distribution of to say, well, this is a platform that has been validated to run NFV applications. That's been pretty successful. They went for they are close to the second release, which is, and they have established, for example, things that are very interesting, like, for example, a stable federated testing lab. Development. We found that in the process that it was something that was interesting as well, was to address the MANO aspects, the management and orchestration, that were the ones that were a little bit, well, what we normally refer as the delta of NFV. I'm talking about the differentiation with respect of, I would say, other virtualization strategies or cloud infrastructures or whatever. And we found that the best way of addressing this was probably not precisely this integration approach, working upstream that OpenNFV was committed to, because there were a set of requirements that were first different from the most demanding problems that now the cloud communities are dealing with. This is on the one hand. And second, they were very urgent for us to be solved, because we wanted to have something to start proving in an operational environment that we could deliver to our promises. So the decision has been precisely to start additional efforts for making implementations of open source MANO stacks, showing that this can be accomplished, and that can be accomplished using mostly existing components, by integrating them, by adding the software that is not available right now, or by modifying somehow some of the parts. So far, the curious thing, and this is again a sign of the liveliness of the of the environment is that instead of having one single project, we have several, which is on the other hand is not bad. I mean, it's something that is part of, we are addressing different needs, we are addressing different scenarios, and well, the one size fits all is something that is complicated to achieve in general in life, and in particular in this in the telco sector.
Yeah.
So right now we have ETSI. We found that ETSI was very eager to experiment with the idea of playing the game of making standards evolve by embracing the open source mechanisms of developing reference implementations. And we, in particular, my company decided to embrace this effort together with ETSI and together with many other partners. We have started an effort that is called OSM, this open source MANO, that we were demonstrating very recently in Barcelona at the Mobile World Congress. How? Because we started from not from scratch, from existing software, by combining different pieces and showing that the orchestration of a real service can be done, can be actually done, and can be done in fulfilling the requirements of the telecom environment, which was very important for us.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I will say it was very good to kind of hear about the advances in the MANO part of it, because I remember last year I did a story kind of looking at MANO a bit, and at that time that was a big concern. Was everybody was kind of worried about how that was progressing? Because obviously it's a very important part of this, but there was so little collaboration, it seemed like, or at least agreement on what to do there. But it seems like over the past 6 months or so, especially, it's been a lot of pretty good progress there. So people seem to be a little less nervous, a little more confident that aspect is moving along pretty good now.
Yeah, as far as I can tell, this is something that is operational, is running. The point is now it's in the process of the different vendors making products of it, and the different operators running real services out of these products. But we're on our way, yes.
Yeah, that's good to hear too. Well, another thing I want to touch a bit on was it did seem like, last time we had spoken last year, 2015 was a big year. I think everyone was discussing 2015 as a big year for a lot of POCs, but a lot of POCs also moving towards commercial deployment. Mm-hmm. It seemed like perhaps as the year went on, the commercial deployments maybe didn't progress quite as quickly, but still a lot of POC work. I guess as you look at that progress over the past 12 months or so, have you been, I guess, happy, or has ETSI been happy with the progress in terms of those POCs moving towards commercial, or do we still just need some more POC work, and we shouldn't be too concerned yet that the commercial aspect is still, maybe dragging a little bit behind?
Well, probably the actual commercial deployments of, let's say, full-fledged NFV is something that is taking a little bit longer than it was originally planned.
Sure.
But something that I try to insist very much is that whatever the project you are engaging, at the beginning, you are normally more optimistic. And then reality, and then you have to deal with things that are not necessarily to deal with the technology itself. It's about commercial opportunities. Is about things like, for example, when it comes to NFVs, about the procurement processes, things that you originally were not taking into account because the technology is there, is ready. You have an open source MANO implementation that is fully operational, but then you go to the deployment and you find that you have to you have to organize. Just an example, you have to organize training courses for many of the engineers and the operation and the people that are running the operations. And this is something that originally, it was in the plans, but you say no, 1 month of training course, and then you find that you need 3. This is on the one hand. On the other hand, I would say that there are many commercial services that are one way or another not necessarily fully implementing NFV, but they're implementing some kind of virtualized network functions. And this is something that even when a good sign is that many operators are making announcements of this, and they're using them as a selling argument for their services. And this is a sign that we're talking about something that is starting to gain momentum inside the not only the operational machineries, but the marketing ones. And this is important because we are using network virtualization, software networks, NFV in particular, as a selling argument. The POCs are, we are keeping POCs because we are keeping trying to, as I said before, to push the limits of what can be achieved with this, and we are keeping POCs, but the number of POCs are diminishing because the number of commercial demonstrators is growing.
Okay.
So the number of what you would call precisely proofs of concepts is lowering because we do have more commercial. And well, we have detected the fact that some vendors, some operators don't want to be associated with the idea of a POC any longer. Mm-hmm. What they want is to show a pilot, to show a commercial deployment, a pre-commercial environment, etc. It's like, for example, in our case, we started some time ago a pilot, or originally it was a POC in Brazil for the home environment, a virtualized home environment. We now have several thousand users that are paying for the service. Mm-hmm. So we are well, I would not say we're still making money, but we have people paying for using NFV already. Yeah. And this is something that is important. You cannot call it that any longer a POC. In practice, we call it a commercial pilot. Yeah. We have as well, we are deploying our unique infrastructure that is supposed to be precisely a common infrastructure for deploying, among other things, NFV applications. Mm-hmm. At least NFV applications in the control plane in this first phase, and later on in the data plane as well. And well, this is becoming commercial. It's not becoming, it's not a POC any longer because we have been running POCs in several countries in the past. So I would say POCs are now much more mostly focused on pushing these limits, and we are doing POCs in aspects that are very much related with high performance or high resiliency, or the application, for example, of highly personalized services. Mm-hmm. But in the other cases, we are either on the side of the actual commercial deployments or on the demonstration of interoperability, which is more connected with things like what ETSI call the plug tests, which is about running interoperability among different vendors of products that are, if not fully mature, very close to maturity.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. You're right. I know here in the U.S., at least, AT&T obviously has been very vocal, like you were saying, about announcing their progress as well. I know they said, I think 5%, a little more than 5% of their network was software controlled at the end of last year. They're looking at 30 or 35% for this year. And also, like you said too, what you guys are doing, but they're seeing some use in the enterprise environment and actually getting people to pay for the service too. So it's good to see some revenue generation as well. That's always nice for all of this. But yeah, it does seem like the operators are moving, like you said, I guess away from the POCs and now wanting to see actual commercial uses for this. That's a big progress there too. And you kind of touch a bit on too, I guess, how is the interoperability coming between the vendor community on this? I mean, obviously, the standards work at ETSI is probably a big part of that. Are you seeing good progress in terms of the different vendors being able to kind of, I guess, use what's out there to kind of make sure that they can interoperate when they get an actual deployment?
Yes, I mean, we have been running for a couple of years. We have been running what we call our reference lab, so our NFV reference lab. And I remember at the beginning that it took a long time just to make the deployment of the different functions, etc. We have seen an improvement there, okay, a real improvement, and just if not because of anything else, because of there is a common language. And when you're talking with someone and you're telling, well, what functions are you implementing in your VNF manager, or how we will orchestrate this, things like that. 1 year and a half ago, it was the understanding of those terms were completely disparate. But now we're talking about the same thing. And this is even the reference framework has helped a lot. When it comes to making composed deployments, this is something that, for example, that we demonstrated with OSM in Barcelona, that is doable still, it's nothing. It's not that the pieces of the different components are working out of the box directly, but the effort is, I would say, is within the reasonable limits that you can expect with technologies that are not that easy.
Yeah.
Still, we are a little bit away from a pure plug and play, but we are out. Plug, wait a little bit, fiddle a little bit, and play. So it's all.
It's getting there. It's getting there. Yeah, that's important. And again, I guess it has the operator community, because again, when I talk to some operators about this, they do express at times some frustration in the fact that it has been maybe a little slower than they were hoping for. I mean, obviously, a lot of the more forward-thinking telecom operators like yourself, Telefonica there, AT&T, I'm sure you guys would be hoping to be a little more plug and play at this point, as opposed to plug in, wait and play. But is that a concern? And is there a concern, I guess, for the vendor community that the carriers might start deploying versions of the technology that maybe aren't standards compliant, that there could be, getting out ahead of the standards and then maybe having to go back at some point to make it standards compliant? Is that a concern much yet?
There is a, and this is my personal vision,
Sure.
not necessarily my companies or whatever.
I know.
Is that no? I mean, the implication of bringing software into the network equation will be very similar. Will make network become similar to the computing, to the IT market as well. In the IT market, the number of standards you have is much more reduced than in the case of networking. Networking, almost everything is a standard, because you have many different pieces that have to fit together by means that are not that much flexible. As the end, what you have is a fibers and cables and boxes, and you have to connect them, and so you need to be very careful about what you're doing. And even the architectures need to be very much standardized and very much very clear on how and what you deploy and where you deploy it. But now, if you have you are playing with a much more let's say a much softer and moldable matter.
Flexible, more flexible.
Yes, flexible. It's something that you can fit together in many different ways.
Yeah.
The need for standardizing everything will diminish. On the other hand, the need for having people that understand better the matter you're dealing with will raise. On the other hand, and you will have to, this is something that I have said very, very often, is about the need of changing a little bit the profiles of the people that are dealing with networks in the future.
Yeah.
On the other hand, that will imply that part of the architectures, part of the how services will be built in the future, my impression is that they will change. They will change because right now, if you look at the network architectures of different operators, they are very, very, very similar. Probably there are some changes in for sure, in the brands of the different parts that you're using, similar differences on the number of how you duplicate certain functions to guarantee availability, things like that. Dimensioning, but not more than that. In the future, we will be very much like, I don't know, you name it, I don't know, an airline or a bank or whatever when it comes to the information systems. At the end, the external interfaces are the same, but how you build them, how you maintain them, the pieces that are composing them are much more disparate, different, and they are adapted by different ways. In different ways, and this is something that is going to happen as well. That will translate in that the demand on standard, the demand on standard components will be different, because the kind of interfaces we will be seeking for will be more related to our internal processes and not with the commonly agreed mechanisms as we have now. And that will imply changes in the procurement, changes in the way in which they will be certified, etc. Which still we are we are trying to figure out. It's not that we have something that is really clear. It's something that is we are completely certain of how things will evolve. But my impression is that we will move more in the direction of IT and the current IT practice and current IT standards, and that will somehow simplify those requirements in the telco world.
So we got to keep in mind, I guess, that there has to be a bit of flexibility then when it comes to this workforce standard. I mean, we shouldn't be looking at standards as being a rigid, has to be this way every time kind of thing anymore. It's got to be some leeway there. And again, it does seem like software does enable that, because again, it's much easier to change code or something than it is to go back out and replace boxes and things like that. So
yeah, no, it's at the end. It's like when you look at the circuit board, which has hardwired everything, or you have a piece of software. It's precisely that. It's the same, from physical to something that becomes, well, not so physical. It needs a physical support substrate, but it's not physical any longer.
Yeah, makes sense. And I guess maybe when it comes to the physical aspect of it, has that are we in a pretty good place there? I mean, it seems like most people have kind of kind of fallen back to the using an x86 kind of white box type of platform. Is that part at least kind of been pretty standardized, or at least agreed upon that's kind of what we're going to be looking at?
No, definitely. I mean, this is one of the goals is precisely to have a white box approach. Though the important thing here is that we have not to forget, and this is something that happens as well in the IT world. You can have a very regular infrastructure. I mean, a cloud-like, whether you go to a public cloud or you have a private one. But then from some critical functions, the IT, when it comes to IT, you rely on dedicated architectures. Mm-hmm. When it comes to, I don't know, you name it, for very, very high availability databases, or things like supercomputing or massive calculations, you have to rely on particular architectures. Though, in many cases, what you try to have are consistent, homogeneous management and operating environments. So you are going to run Linux on whatever the box you're having, mm-hmm. or you want to have a consistent management software for whether it's cloud or not cloud. And this is the trend I see right now. So here.
Very good, interesting. Well, maybe one final question then before we let you go. I guess as you look over the next 9 months or so, kind of to the end of 2016, what do you expect to be kind of maybe the main focus for ETSI in terms of kind of this continued push? Obviously, like you said, the release 2 is about ready. I think release 3 has been already talked about a bit as well. What is your, I guess, looking at the progress both from ETSI and maybe from Telefónica's point of view?
Well, when it comes to ETSI in release 3, what we are we have almost about to finish the release 3 definition and the identification of the different items. We are very much committed precisely when what I would say is identifying now the relationships between different aspects. Just to give you an example of something that is happening right now, is precisely how you connect security requirements with all the orchestration and interfaces requirements. So far, we have been evolving in independent threads, because we were identifying the basis. But now we are starting precisely to make a real relationship and identifying and trying to paint the full landscape mm-hmm. with all the. And going into precisely what is actually required for real interoperability and real this homogeneity we were talking before. Sure. Second is that we have started as well, and we are committed to go for something that is about identifying precise protocols and precise implementation requirements. Mostly because we have this strong commitment in the ETSI group not to try to reinvent the wheel. So we are very much committed to mostly do it by profiling and endorsing existing implementation and identifying wherever we see a gap, asking the responsible standard organizations, whatever, to adapt their implementations to support the NFV technologies. And in this respect, we have taken a step that I think is very important, which is precisely about trying to harmonize or at least synchronize mm-hmm. The information models between different standard organizations. So It's not that we are going to invent a complete information model covering everything, but it's about avoiding overlaps and avoiding collisions among the. So it's about, hey, we're going to take care of the virtualization aspects, and whenever you want to make a reference to something that is virtualized, tell us, and we will tell you whenever we want to do whatever what is dealing with your issues, whether it is SDN or whether it is network management or whatever. And that's the idea. We have started this, and it has been extremely promising in that respect. Finally, we want to take advantage of the alignment with open source that we have started with things like OSM. Mm-hmm. This is with respect to ETSI. In Telefonica, well, what we are now looking very eagerly is to the consolidation of our open source activities on the one hand, and second, we are very much eager to a couple of things that are very much related, which is making our reference lab evolve into the reference lab we have now, plus becoming closer to demonstrations that are dealing with end-to-end services. Mm-hmm. And in particular, with something that we are very eager right now, at least in the research branch I work for, which is 5G, mm-hmm. which is about bringing our experience in the software networking, in SDN, in NFV, etc., into making precisely realizing the promise of a next generation network infrastructure that allows the convergence between fixed and mobile networks, that simplifies management, that allows for much better performance of networks and a much lower cost, because this is part of what they have to achieve, having a pervasive and highly mobile network in the future.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Yeah, the 5G aspect of it, obviously, I know that's a lot of work being worked on that as well. But you're right, the virtualization part of that is going to be key to kind of what 5G is supposed to be. And so it does seem like that the timelines between the two are kind of maybe a little parallel right now. But as the work progresses, they will cross over. And yeah, it does seem like virtualization will be key to that kind of growth of what the 5G plans are.
No, definitely. Yeah. 5G is one of the goals for the coming years, and it will be. And I try to insist on this: 5G will be a network based on software, or it won't be. There won't be any 5G at all. This is something that's.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All the promise of 5G, you're right. It's going to be so reliant on automation and the evolution of software that it's going to be the key to it, really. That's going to be, air interface and spectrum is one thing, but that behind the scenes, the software part of it's going to be a big part.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, hey, Diego, again, definitely appreciate the time and insight and kind of catching up. It sounds like, again, you guys have made a lot of progress over the past year, but sounds like the next year is going to be maybe even more work somehow for you guys. So you guys will be busy.
Definitely.
Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds very good. Well, again, Diego, definitely appreciate the time today. Thanks so much for the insight, and hopefully we can talk again soon.
Okay, thank you then.
Very good. Thanks. Well, that'll do it for this week's show. Make sure to check us out again next week when we are scheduled to speak with Ron Haberman from Nokia Networks to discuss the company's cloud band business, as well as a look at the overall market maturation. Thanks for watching.
NFV SDN Reality Check with Dan Meyer is a production of RCR TV. To suggest show topics or to reach Dan, you can find him on email, dmeyer@rcrwireless.com, and on Twitter @Meyer_Dan. For more Dan, news on NFV SDN and everything wireless, find your way over to rcrwireless.com.